Hey, yo, we are live. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. We got a big slate tonight. Lots of injuries news to go over. Surprisingly, kind of a compact slate from where we're looking to target, though, with the totals in this game. There's definitely some games that are standing out, some games that aren't so friendly from a fantasy point environment, so we'll talk about that as we go along. We got some teams dealing with some injuries. We got some big pricing discrepancies on both websites, on DraftKings and FanDuel. So we'll be covering that all as we go along here, as always, guys. So if you have any questions throughout the stream, feel free to ask them. I will gladly help you out. We're going to talk about DraftKings first, then we'll talk about FanDuel. Breaking down the overall field of the slate the entire time, though, of course. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking this bad boy down game by game. We'll be waiting on some injury news. As far as the latest and greatest, don't really see anything coming through as of recently. We did get confirmation that there is no Nazir Little. There is no Robert Covington. That was about an hour ago. Dennis Smith Jr. listed as questionable. But outside of that, we're still waiting on a bunch. So we'll talk about it as we go along here. Obviously, we're going to need that injury news. Anthony, how we doing? Love this beat. Yes, sir. That's that lock of the night beat. Love it, too. Patrick says, what's up, KJK? How you doing, Patrick? Welcome into the live stream. Let's talk about it. We got 10 games, so... I'm going to have to get off this thing in about an hour to update my projections, my core plays. I got another business meeting I got to hop on after this. So going to try to get through this thing quickly and efficiently and leave you guys time to ask questions. So with all that being said, let's talk about it. Milwaukee taking on Cleveland is the first game we have. The biggest piece of news here is that Jared Allen is indeed listed as questionable again. If he is indeed out, Evan Mobley and Kevin Love are going to get big bumps again. Kevin Love, I was all in on last time when there was no Jared Allen. I would really like Kevin Love again if there is indeed no Jared Allen. He's priced up at 8K. As far as Kevin Love's latest price over here on DraftKings, they've got him priced up to a 6K price tag in comparison to 5.5 last time. So not quite as friendly of a price tag as we were dealing with last time, but the fact of the matter still remains. If there is no Jared Allen, Kevin Love steps in the rotation. His usage and his permanent production is really, really good stuff. So I'll be loading up on some Kevin Love again if there is indeed no Jared Allen. So that's the biggest piece of news here. And Evan Mobley would become a much better play as well. As far as an overall game environment in this one, this game right now comes in with a 218.5 over-under. It's a 4-point spread in favor of Milwaukee. So not the fastest paced game on the slate. We have Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton back on the Milwaukee side. For me on the Milwaukee side, and kind of a slower paced game, my favorite play of the bunch is going to be the cheapest price tag guy in a Bobby Portis at 6'8". Haven't seen Bobby Portis have the biggest game as of late, putting up 35, 35, 31, 25. He's kind of been down. I think it's just a matter of time before Bobby Portis explodes. We know the upside that he possesses. So for me, I'm going to be hopping on the price tag of Bobby Portis at a 6'8 price tag. So certainly going to be going there. As far as anyone else in this game, to be honest with you, I'm not getting too excited. Both teams pretty much fully healthy. On the Cleveland side, you can be paying up for Darius Garland. But other than that, at 9.4, like, do we really want to go there when we have all these other great pay-up options that we're going to want to be leaving some flexibility for? Like, obviously, a James Harden. James Harden's once again going to be my top pay-up option on the slate by far. There's no Kyrie Irving. There's no Kevin Durant. So he just becomes a usage monster. He's going to be, I can tell you right now, my top priority beginning my lineups by a mile, just loading up on James Harden. Overall, in this game, I'm not too intrigued outside of the fact that we're waiting on... I mean, there is no Grayson Allen in this one, so I guess that's one thing I shouldn't be skipping over too much. Just, I mean, Dante DiVincenzo, Wesley Matthews, and Rodney Hood should get a bigger bump up here. For me, it's DiVincenzo, it's Wesley Matthews, but even then, like, with Giannis in, as long as Giannis is in, he's going to dominate so much usage that these guys are, at best, tournament flyers. Dante DiVincenzo certainly has the shooting upside. Last time, 24 minutes, 30.25 DraftKings points. He has the ability to really shoot the three ball. When you get that 3-point bonus on DraftKings, certainly makes sense to be playing him in your tournament lineups, but I'd be lying to you if I said like anything's looking really crazy to me. He is by far my top play. I will say Dante DiVincenzo at a 4K price tag. Really grading out good for me over here. On the Cleveland side, there's a couple of interesting things. If Jared Allen's ruled out, we might see D Wade start again, 3-1, 0.63 DK points per minute. Not really good, but he's really cheap. And also, Rajon Rondo and Chetty Osman are both minimum salary. So I guess I'll round up this game by saying these guys are all minimum salary. So if you want to take punts on them in tournaments, it makes sense. But once again, are they my top plays on the slate? Not necessarily. Rondo at minimum salary, though, I do have to say, is very intriguing. He's really good from a fantasy point per minute aspect. He's put up 24, 26, 22, 19. but he does only have point guard eligibility. You're taking up a point guard spot with that, and that's a little bit dicey considering some of the really high upside point guards that we have on this slate tonight. So Charlotte taking on Indiana. Next game on the slate. This game's going to be a pretty fast one. So a 228.5 over under, 2.5 point spread in favor of the Charlotte Hornets. Expect to stay close. Expected to be up tempo. All of which great things to be hearing as far as fantasy is concerned. And we know that there's not a lot of too many high scoring games on this slate. Mostly the nightcap games. Honestly, we're going to talk about a bunch of games after this one that I'm just not really looking to go to. So it's going to kind of be glancing over those pretty quick. But with a 228.5 over-under in this one, with there continuing to be no Domantas Sabonis, Malcolm Brogdon, Miles Turner, that is going to make it so that Karis LeVert, the thumbnail boy on the live stream, if you didn't notice, going to be a really, really good spot here for him. He's taking on a Charlotte Hornets team that's terrible defensively. They've been terrible all season long. They're one of the fastest-paced teams in the league. Anytime you see Charlotte on the slate, you know it's going to be a fast up-tempo game with a high total. So for a Karis LeVert, here, taking on a Charlotte team that ranks 23rd overall in points per possession rank on my half-court and putbacks premium content tool, 25th overall in offensive rebounding percentage rank, 26th in putbacks. So they're allowing a lot of points, and they're allowing a lot of second opportunity chances for opposing offenses, all of which should be fantastic. And with Karis LeVert currently running the point position, going to have a lot more assist usage upside than he typically would. We saw it last time out, 8 assists out of him, out of a guy that you typically see, you know, scoring a lot of points, 30, 26, 20, but doesn't exactly rack up the assists. With him taking over the point guard responsibilities, however, that can certainly change in a hurry here. And the game environment is just fantastic. So Karis LeVert really going to be a top priority for me on this slate. I talked about James Harden. Karis LeVert's right there with him as far as guys that are getting bumps up here that you really should be looking to. Some interesting guys on Indiana for me. My projections right now are really high on Lance Stevenson, surprisingly. There's no Sabonis, there's no Brogdon, there's no Miles Turner, no TJ Warren, no TJ McConnell. I mean, these guys have been out, but we know that these guys are still out of the rotation. And Lance Stevenson is now priced at a 3.7 price tag, so I do think he's kind of an intriguing play. He's been playing like right around 18 minutes. If he's able to get more, I will say I've got him projected a little bit aggressively right now on the minute side of things. I have him projected a little bit higher than that, so that could be a case of why he's grading out as a good play for me. But if there was ever a time to get some Lance Stevenson exposure with a 113 team total for these Indiana Pacers, I do think him off the bench is pretty interesting. And then, of course, obviously a Jeremy Lamb as well at a 4.4 price tag. A little bit of a revenge game narrative here. Jeremy Lamb taking on the former team he used to play for in the Charlotte Hornets. Really good fantasy point per minute producer as is. And with the Charlotte Hornets, we did get news that there was no Gordon Hayward in this one. So what does that exactly mean? That means that we're probably going to see this team go small a lot more. So this might be a scenario where Gogo Batazzi gets ran off the floor because Mason Plumlee traditionally doesn't play that many minutes. And we're probably going to see a lot more Kelly Oubre and a lot more PJ Washington. So for me, it's kind of a sneaky spot to be targeting some of these wing players off the bench, like a Kelly Oubre, a PJ Washington on the Charlotte side, and then on the Indiana side, like I talked about, a Lance Stevenson, a Jeremy Lamb, those 6-man guys. I think they could get a lot more minutes than you typically see out of them. So starting it off on the Charlotte side, I do have a lot of interest in a PJ Washington and only a 4.7 price tag. We saw him play 4 minutes, and then he got ejected last time out. So you look at the 3.5 DraftKings points. If anyone else that doesn't know why he had a terrible game last time, it's because he stepped on the floor for 4 minutes and then flipped out and got ejected. So I wouldn't take that too seriously. As far as PJ Washington in this one, I am really going to like him at 4.7, especially with no Gordon Hayward. That's going to lock in more minutes. And like I said, I have a feeling this game's going to go small. So Kelly Oubre, PJ Washington, I really like. And then, obviously, the main candidates on the Charlotte side, Terry Rozier, LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, and then running it back on the Indiana side, Chris Duarte and Karis LeVert are by far going to be my top 2 options. They're priced up the most on the Indiana side, but for good reason. Torrey Craig, Justin Holiday grade out as decent plays for me in the mid-range at only 4.8 and 5.2. I really wouldn't be interested in those guys if it wasn't for the fact that they're playing in one of the highest paced games against a Charlotte team. Overall, not the best fantasy point producers. Not really a place I'm looking to go typically. But with them dealing with some injuries with this matchup, wouldn't hate it on a slate like this if you want to take some shots in tournaments, but I'd be lying to you if I said they really grade out too well in my projections right now. For me, my favorite play in this game from an upside at his price tag aspect, I already talked about it, but I love PJ Washington at 4.7. So he's really the first guy that I'd be looking to get in my lineups as far as an upside at his price tag. And then my top 2 plays overall on this side are going to be, or in this game, are going to be LaMelo Ball and Karis LeVert. both the point guards, both had the most on-ball handling responsibilities, fast up-tempo game. LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, and Terry Rozier are a little bit negatively correlated. They're all playing a bunch of minutes, but the minutes in the the usage when they're out there on the court together, obviously when one guy's scoring, when one guy's grabbing rebounds, when one guy's getting assists, the other can't. So I would advise that you limit yourself to getting probably only 2 of those guys in your lineup of that 3. And it's kind of always a guessing game, to be honest, with Charlotte. We know Gordon Hayward's out, so that makes me feel a lot better about those other guys we talked about, like a Kelly Oubre, like a PJ Washington. But when it comes to those top 3 guys, I mean, I would just make a rule if you're making multiple lineups to get maximum exposure to 2 guys. I wouldn't be going with 3. That's kind of how I'd be approaching that. LA Clippers taking on the Orlando Magic. Next game on the slate. This game comes in right now with a 214 over-under. It's a 1.5 point spread in favor of the Orlando Magic. So expected to stay close. Not exactly expected to be the highest pace game, however. And looking at the price tags on DraftKings, we did get confirmation that there is indeed no Marcus Morris Sr. So that's kind of a big deal considering he's a guy that typically plays, 30 minutes in the rotation. With him being out, look for a Terrence Mann, a Luke Kennard, Amir Coffey to step up, maybe even a Justice Winslow to get more minutes. But for me, it's Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard that are going to get the biggest bump up. And they get that in a fantastic matchup here. So it actually could be a pretty relevant thing here. Terrence Mann played 32 minutes last time out with there being no Morris, put up 33 DraftKings points at only a 4-1 price tag, and DraftKings decided to bring his price tag down even more. Don't know why, makes no sense. He's going to be a great play here. Pretty good fantasy point per minute producer. Then you take Marcus Morris off the bench or off the court, and it's going to be even better. Pulling up this LA Clippers squad on my sheets here. Let's see. For the LA Clippers, and looking at some of this production on the season. As far as a permanent basis, like I said, you take Marcus Morris off the floor. We know there's no Kawhi Leonard, there's no Paul George. So you're taking a guy that typically plays like 30, 35 minutes a game with a .90 DK point per minute production off the floor and giving it to other people. Obviously, like I said, Luke Kennard at .74 DK points per minute, Terrence Mann at .74 DK points per minute, going to become much, much better plays here. And they get a fantastic matchup taking on our Orlando squad. When looking at my defensive half-court and putbacks tool for Orlando on the season, they're currently grading out as the 26th best team overall in points per possession rank. So they are bottom 5 in the league here. And 25th overall half-court points per play rank. And that's just not going to get the job done. So Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard really looking like some great plays to be taking some shots on in your tournament lineups at their respective price tags. Only 4-2 for Luke Kennard. We saw him go out there and put up 48 DraftKings points the last time out. So, and we did just get confirmation. Nicholas Batum is in. So that was the one piece of news we were waiting on. Nicholas Batum is in for this team. So that's going to take away a little bit of the usage for those guys we were just talking about. But still, I'm not too concerned. I think he had a back injury. It's going to be interesting to see if Batum's limited in his return. Not sure that I would expect him to be here based on the latest and greatest news. But he's kind of been in and out for quite some time now. So the question just becomes, how many minutes is he going to play? He played just 8 minutes and didn't play at all during the second half last time out with that back injury. The time before, they were working his way up to like 25, 30 minutes. So Nicholas Batum probably becomes a pretty interesting play here. It's a little bit risky with that back injury, but overall is going to grade out as a decent play for me for sure. And then those guys we just talked about. Terrence Mann at 3.7, really, really grading out as a good play for me. So he's the first guy that I would be looking to at his price tag. That's going to be a phenomenal value. And then obviously we talked about Luke Kennard. Other than that in this game, I'm not too interested to be going here overall. I mean, running it back on the other side as far as the top guys I'd be looking to on the Orlando side, surprisingly, the first guy that's going to pop to me is Gary Harris at 3.9 just because of his price tag. It's really, really cheap, but I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said Gary Harris is someone I'm getting too excited about, but the minutes are there, the usage and fantasy point per minute production really isn't. He just has those random games where he goes off, but typically speaking, he's kind of just out there as a 3-and-D guy. He'll shoot a few threes, play a lot of defense. Other than that, doesn't do a whole lot for us from a fantasy point aspect, but he is cheap enough to where, we saw him play 39 minutes last time out. If you want to take some shots in tournaments, I don't hate it. Franz Wagner at 5.2 on DraftKings is the one that's really standing out to me the most after him. At only a 5.2 price tag, playing around, once again, mid to upper 30s minutes a game, 38, 34. A guy that can really shoot the 3-ball when he does get hot. He's had some rough shooting performances as of late, 0 for 5, 1 for 6, 0 for 3 last time out. If he's able to get a few of those fall, obviously a 34-point performance very quickly turns into a 40-plus fantasy point performance. And at a 5.2 price tag, you'd be very, very happy with that. So those are kind of some of the top guys I'm looking to here. And then obviously a Mo Bamba at 5'4". Mo Bamba continues to just be really underpriced for his upside. Jalen Suggs at 5'8". Honestly, all these guys are grading out as decent plays for me. Cole Anthony. All the main usage guys on the Orlando side are just kind of I mean, the fantasy point environment isn't the best at 214, but their price tags are cheap enough to where I'm willing to go there. Cole Anthony at 6'7", Jalen Suggs at 5'8", Franz Wagner at 5'2", Mo Bamba at 5'4". Like, probably just sticking to those starters, and I have, a decent amount of interest in all of them, to be honest with you, just because they're not being priced up enough. We saw Mo Bamba only play 7 minutes last time out with a right ankle sprain. I mean, he should be good to go in this one. But Jalen Suggs at 5'8" is probably got to be my favorite option, just based upon his recent form and how good he's been. This guy's been in attack mode, really getting a lot of buckets, putting up some serious fantasy point production, 35, 46, 37 DraftKings points, and his price tag's still priced in the mid 5K range. But mixing all these guys in, I have no issues with it. Jalen Suggs, Mo Bamba, Franz Wagner, Cole Anthony at 6'7", great. That was a good play for me as well. And then you have Wendell Carter. So it's kind of similar to the situation we talked about with the Charlotte Hornets, where you don't necessarily know who's going to have the biggest game. You just kind of mix and blend in your lineups. For me, the first guys that I'll be prioritizing based on the scoring format on DraftKings and their price tags are going to be Franz Wagner at 5'2" and Jalen Suggs. Their minutes are solidified. They take a lot of three-pointers. Kind of everything matching up, and the price tags are looking very, very good for us on this slate tonight. So I really do like those guys for the most part. And we get to move on to this next game. Sacramento taking on the Atlanta Hawks, guys. This one's going to be a track meet. The biggest piece of news we're waiting on in this one is the De'Aaron Fox news. He is currently listed as questionable. Comes in with a 230.5 over under 10-point spread in favor of the Atlanta Hawks. So maybe could turn into a blowout here. We already did get confirmation that there is no Terrence Davis in this one. So he is indeed out. With him being out, that's just going to really lock in those minutes for a Buddy Hield. Tyrese Halliburton especially. I mean, if there's no De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton becomes one of the best plays on the slate. I already like him as is in this fast up-tempo game, but you take Fox out of the equation and Halliburton's just going to be an absolute smash play. So he's someone that I would certainly, you got to keep your eyes on that De'Aaron Fox news. That's big, big news. But overall, this game's just going to be looking very, very friendly. And you're just going to want to be loading up on the guys that get the most minutes. For me, the guy that stands out for me overall in this game that's really getting a lot of minutes, that's just way too cheap, is Bogdan Bogdanovic. He comes in with a 4.6 price tag. That is really, really cheap if he is indeed ruled in. He's currently listed as questionable. He's expected to have a minutes restriction, though, is the only thing. So that's where things get a little bit dicey. At only a 4.6 price tag, you could take some risks on him in tournaments. I wish he got a full allotment of run because I don't have a lot more interest. His teammate that doesn't have a minutes restriction, and a Kevin Huerter, though, isn't priced up too much more than him at only 4.7. And once again, shoots a lot of threes, fast up-tempo game. Gunner can just shoot. And this is the perfect game environment to where his price tag's cheap enough to where the pace and the shot volume enough should be able to get you there. And the upside's just really good in your tournaments. They come in with a 120 implied total. So, just loading up on some Kevin Huerter off the bench. He's the sixth man. He's going to get all the usage with that second unit when he comes in. The same can be said for Danilo Gallinari as well. With Bogdanovic coming back, these guys don't look quite as good as they did before, but once again, very fast up-paced game, very cheap price tags, very good fantasy point per minute producers, so I'm willing to go there. And then obviously the pay-up options. Trae Young at 10-4, if there was ever a time for him to have a ceiling game, and a slate for you to be prioritizing it makes a lot of sense to be going to him with a 230.5 over-under. It's a 10-point spread. The only thing that's a little bit disappointing with Trae Young is we do have some other options that were much better plays that we're going to talk to. We're going to talk about a James Harden with no Kyrie and Kevin Durant. We're going to talk about a John Morant with possibly no Desmond Bane and Dillon Brooks again. We're still waiting on that Desmond Bane news. But those two guys really going to stand out to me. Obviously, Nikola Jokic as well. But I do think you could throw Trae Young into the equation. If this game does stay close, I do think he has the upside to get you there. It's just a matter of when you're looking at the overall pay-up options on the slate. You have Trae Young at 10-4, but then you have John Morant down at 9-9, DeJounte Murray at 9-8. You can get a discount on both of those guys. You can go up to a Luka Doncic against a Portland squad that's been terrible defensively all season long. James Harden with no Kyrie Irving and no Kevin Durant. And then you have Nikola Jokic against a Brooklyn squad in that fast up-paced game as a great run-back option with James Harden. So for me, don't get me wrong, do like Trae Young. It's just he's a little bit in no man's land right now with the pricing, the way it's grading out right now. So decent play for me, but it's a matter of how much a priority he is for me. Really, really need this De'Aaron Fox news. He's listed as questionable. If he's ruled in, I would be willing to play both him and Halliburton. If he's ruled out, Halliburton just becomes that much better of a play. We already know that there is indeed no Terrence Davis, so I think that's going to lock Buddy Hield into some more minutes. He's a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, we know Buddy Hield's very scoring reliant. If you didn't know that, you should know that, and I'm going to let you be aware of that very, very quickly. If you're playing Buddy Hield, chances are you're going to absolutely love him or you're going to absolutely hate him about midway through your night. That's just kind of how Buddy rolls. He's going to chuck a lot of threes for you. His usage is going to be very high. In a fast, up-tempo game, I'm certainly willing to take the risks. Just know that if he has a bad shooting night, you're probably not going to be too happy with his performance because he doesn't really do a whole lot else. He doesn't get the rebounds, assists, blocks. He's a scorer. He shoots a lot of threes. You know, last big game we saw of him, he played 30 minutes against the Houston squad. He put up 45 DraftKings points, 27 which of was him just scoring points. He had 4 steals in that game too, which is a bit of an outlier for Buddy Hield. Doesn't typically do that. So I do like him. Just know he's a little bit dicey. If you're looking for some more consistency, Harron Barnes at a 6'3" price tag is the way to go. He's 100 cheaper. He's going to be locked into a lot more minutes than a Buddy Hield. Consistently plays mid-30s to upper 30s minutes. And once again, one of the best fantasy point environments you could ask for. So loading up on some Halliburton, some Barnes. Rashawn Holmes at 4.5 as well. Very, very cheap here. So getting exposure to this game certainly makes a lot of sense. Rashawn Holmes is going to be my favorite play by far from a price tag and the upside at his price tag aspect. I mean, that's really, really cheap for him at a 4.5 price tag. And the great thing about it is if Maytu's rolled out, he's even locked into some more minutes. The bad thing about it is we did see Damian Jones return last time out. And, you know, he got back in the rotation and he played 16 minutes. So they're kind of cycling these centers through. It gets a little bit annoying. We have a few teams in the NBA right now that are dealing with rotations like that. We talk about the Washington Wizards all the time with like Gafford, Thomas Bryant, and all the other centers they have, Montrezl Harrell. The Kings are kind of becoming another team like that. So I do like Rashawn Holmes just based on the price tag alone. You got to be having some interest in him at the price tag. But it would be nice if we knew he could just get back into his starting minutes and playing like 35 plus minutes. I've got him projected for right around 25 right now, just to be on the safe side. But still, at a 4.5 price tag in this type of a game environment, 25 minutes, Rashawn Holmes could absolutely smash here. So I'm still willing to go to him. Unfortunately, we're not going to get those big minutes that we'd like to get out of him, but just going to have to deal with it for now. And I still do think that he is worth going to. So that's kind of my assessment of this game. We got 19 people in here, only 7 likes, guys. If you're enjoying this content, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. We're going to go game by game here, working our way through this DraftKings slate. Then we're going to talk about FanDuel as well. If you have any questions, please do ask them in the chat. And, yeah, let's talk about this New York Knicks-Miami game. The 2 slowest paced teams in the league. For me, this is not really a good spot. Smash that like button. Yes, sir, Patrick. How we doing? MM says, if you're new here and like money, then stay tuned. I appreciate that. Thank you. This game right here is not going to be one we're not going to want to be going to this game is all I got to say. This game comes in with a 204 over-under. It's a 5.5 point spread in favor of Miami. The pace is going to be dreadful here. The overall fantasy upside is really, really bad. If anything, if you're going to anyone in these games, I'd highly recommend the 2 most dominant usage guys on both sides of the rotation. So who's that going to be? On the Knicks side, it's RJ Barrett and Julius Randle. On the Miami side, it's Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. But with that being said, these guys are priced pretty appropriately for their role for the most part, and the pace is really bad. So I don't hate it. One other thing is there is no Kyle Lowry, so that's actually a big piece of news. That does make me willing. Probably Tyler Hero would be my favorite play in this game based on the fact that you get a big discount on him compared to these other guys. He's come all the way down from a 7.5 price tag to a 6.6 price tag. He is returning from the health and safety protocol, so he could be somewhat limited. But I don't really see it. He's a young kid. I mean, a lot of times the veterans are kind of working their way back slowly. Tyler Hero, I think his conditioning should be pretty good. He's only missed a few games. I mean, he was out in the 17th. It's the 26th. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I'm willing to take the risk based on the fact that his price tags come down. So I think Tyler Hero is my favorite play in this game overall, just based on the fact that there's no Tyler Hero, and we've seen that big price tag decrease for him. Nerlens Noel is listed as questionable. Mitchell Robinson is listed as questionable as well. If that is confirmed that both those guys are out, maybe we can be looking at some Taj Gibson, but Mitchell Robinson is expected to play. Nerlens Noel is a little bit more questionable. If anything, if Nerlens Noel is out, maybe that gives a big bump up to a Mitchell Robinson. But if I didn't make it clear enough before, these teams are the 2 slowest paced teams in the league. I mean, they're both barely cracking 100 points. The Knicks aren't even cracking 100 points with only a 99 implied total. So if you want to take a few tournament darts on a couple guys from these games, where there being no Lowry, a Gabe Vincent, a Duncan Robinson, I don't hate it. Maybe a Max Struss, but I I'm not really wanting to load up on it. I can tell you that much. These guys are not going to be big priorities for me. We have Cam Reddish in the New York Knicks rotation now as well, who eventually I would assume is going to get more minutes. He's only played 3 and 5 minutes the last couple times out. I would tend to think he's going to cut into the rotation at some point and take away even more usage. So, yeah, Gabe Vincent's really, really cheap at 5'3". There's no Kyle Lowry if you want to go there. Sure, that makes sense. Wouldn't talk you off it, but also if there was ever a time to fade it, if everyone's going to be going to him because of the cheap, point guard, starting point guard, backup kind of thing, and I can fade him, I will gladly do so in this type of a game environment. I would much rather load up on the other ones. Tat says, you do FanDuel. No, sir, not yet, man. We're going to be wrapping up this DraftKings, and then we'll switch over to FanDuel, so you didn't miss it. We'll talk about it. So we're just still going along the DraftKings part. We're going to talk about the pace games. There's a lot of games that we aren't too interested in this one. The slate's kind of obvious as to where I'm going, to be honest with you. There's some games I really like, some games I really don't like. So, yeah, we're just talking along here, but we've already covered all these games in the 7:30 slot. So let's talk about the 8 o'clock slot games. The first one, Denver taking on the Brooklyn Nets. It's a 221.5 over under 2.5 point spread in favor of the Denver Nuggets. Will Barton is listed as questionable in this one. That is a big piece of news. If he's indeed out, we'll probably see some more minutes for a Austin Rivers. Also, a Monty Morris is going to get a big bump up in his usage. So he would become a much more intriguing play here at only a 4-6 price tag. And also, Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic would become much better plays in this spot as well. 6'5" for Aaron Gordon. As far as Nikola Jokic, 12'4". So we are waiting on that Will Barton news. If Will Barton is good to go, certainly would not mind going to him. But we really need that piece of news. But for the most part, really just looking to lock in on those guys. Overall, I mean, you have Bones Highland and Capazzo kind of splitting minutes off the bench. So even if there is indeed no Will Barton, you could take some risks on those guys, but most likely, I mean, Austin Rivers is just going to be playing a bunch of minutes. He's not the best fantasy point producer. He's only 3-3, so if you want to take some shots on him in tournaments in this type of a game environment compared to the other games on the slate, don't hate it, but once again, not the best fantasy point producer, so it's not like I'm jumping for joy to be getting a ton of Austin Rivers in my lineups. I think he would become a decent play. Not really too intriguing for me right now. Monty Morris at 4-6 is definitely my favorite play from the Denver side, so he's where I'd be looking to. And then, like I said, would really like Aaron Gordon a lot more if there is indeed no Will Barton. Would really like Nikola Jokic a lot more. If Will Barton's in, it's going to be, the core four. It's going to be Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Will Barton, and Monty Morris. But I'm not going to like those guys quite as much from an entire aspect if Barton's in, obviously. You're going to have to kind of trim down on who you're selecting based on, each one of your lineups. With the way this slate's forming up, though, once again, there's some games that are really, really bad. So wouldn't mind you playing a couple of those guys for sure. And obviously, Nikola Jokic, best fantasy point per minute producer in the league at 12.4. The guy just absolutely smashes every single time as far as his permanent production on the season. Pulling it up on DraftKings here. Let's see, select all. I know it's the best in the league, but putting up 1.8 DK points per minute. That is absurd. That is so ridiculous, man. We have Giannis Antetokounmpo at 1.73. I kind of skipped over Giannis early on the slate as well, so I'll admit that, but I just don't think it's really worth going up to Giannis at 11.8 when we have all these other options. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's me kind of jumping to conclusions though, because I will say, typically with Giannis, if the game's going to stay close, he has the upside to really get you there in tournament. So it is only a 4-point spread. For me on the Bucks, it's pretty much Giannis and Dante DiVincenzo and nothing else. Unless you're fading Giannis, then you can go to a Chris Middleton or a Drew Holiday, hoping they have a bigger game. But yeah, don't sleep on Giannis. I kind of skipped over him and just made it kind of broad just because that game wasn't as good of an environment. But when it comes to Giannis, if the game stays close, typically with him, it's not an issue of pace. It's an issue of if the game stays close in minutes. Like if the game stays close, we see him play, around 37 minutes. Whereas if the game turns into a blowout or, they don't really need him out there for the full allotment of minutes, it's more so around that like 30 range, which those 4 or 5 minutes go a long way for a guy that puts up 1.73 DK points per minute. So if you want to get Giannis in your lineups, I don't hate it. James Harden is definitely my top priority, I will say, but you probably will get him with the highest ownership. As it should be, though. I mean, James Harden just becomes a must-play. When there's no James Harden, when there's no Kevin Durant, when there's no Kyrie Irving, James Harden is a must-play. You got to play him. All of his usage goes up. It's pretty much a guaranteed triple-double every time he takes the floor. Last time out, we saw them really struggling to hang in that game with the LA Lakers. James Harden was the only reason they were even able to hang around. He put up 12 rebounds, 11 assists, 33 points, 73 DraftKings points. So James Harden, absolute smash play, top play on the slate for me. You got to be prioritizing him in your lineups. And running it back with Nikola Jokic makes a lot of sense. And like I said, if there's no Will Barton, Aaron Gordon and Monty Morris get an even bigger bump up. I already like those guys as is. Secondary options on the Brooklyn Nets, I really don't like to go there. It's LaMarcus Aldridge, Patty Mills for me if I'm going to anyone. But honestly, it's pretty much James Harden. That's it. Like, I mean, Patty Mills is a guy that does play a lot of minutes and he can get hot. But similar to like a Buddy Hield that we talked about earlier on this slate, he's just so scoring reliant that if he doesn't get you buckets, like, you know, you're not going to be happy with his scoring tournaments. Now, don't get me wrong. He has the ability to really shoot the three ball. If he goes out there and he just starts making a lot of threes, he could put up, 40, 50 DraftKings points on any given night. Just don't be expecting him to do that unless he's just getting a lot of buckets because he's very reliant on those scoring numbers. So just keep that in mind. James Harden, top priority for me on that Brooklyn side. Kind of goes without saying, but he's the one I'm mainly looking to get exposure to there. Toronto taking on Chicago. Next game on the slate. This game comes in with a 219.5 over-under. It's a 3.5 point spread in favor of Chicago, so expected to stay pretty close here. Overall, as far as who I'm looking to, we are waiting on some injury news with Fred VanVleet and Scotty Barnes. De'Aaron Fox is a game-time decision, and Metu is ruled out for the Sacramento Kings. That news just came through, guys. So no Metu for the Kings. I know Damian Jones is back, but at least that's one less guy we have to worry about stealing minutes away from Rashawn Holmes. So I guess that helps Rashawn Holmes a little bit. De'Aaron Fox is a game-time decision, so with that game starting at 7:30, I would advise you to leave yourself a little bit of flexibility to be able to get him in your lineups at that 7:30 lock because that's the best game environment on the slate. If he's in, he's going to be a really, really good play. If he's out, that's going to be a bump up to a Tyrese Halliburton. We're also going to be seeing a lot more Davion Mitchell and Buddy Hield. So that's big, big news. Try to keep yourself some flexibility in your lineup so you can late swap on that one. And let's talk about this Chicago-Toronto game. So, like we just talked about, comes in with a 219.5 over-under. It's a 3.5 point spread in favor of Chicago. Biggest pieces of news we're waiting on in this one is Fred VanVleet and Scotty Barnes, both listed as questionable. In this one, obviously, if they're in, that's a big piece of news because the way this Toronto Raptors rotation is run, they give all their starters a ton of minutes, mid-30s to upper 30s per minute. Per game, borderline 40 minutes for each starter. That's how these Raptors roll. So love targeting them in DFS and fantasy sports because they're going to get those minutes. But if indeed there's no Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet, we're going to see a lot more Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Chris Boucher, Achiawa, Justin Champagnie. I don't know how to pronounce that, to be honest with you. But all those guys would become much better plays if indeed those guys are ruled out. So really need that news. Really going to be waiting on it, and until we get it, we can't quite talk about our top priorities. So I'll just try to break it down like this. Pretty much whoever starts for the Toronto Raptors are going to be a really good play. We know their minutes are going to be locked in. Obviously, those price tags are going to vary and stuff based upon who's ruled in, but they're all really good fantasy point producers. They're all putting up like 0.95 DK points per minute around there, or if not, they're in the 0.8s. So OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, just going to be loading up on these guys, and the game's expected to stay close. I'm going to love it. And then on the Chicago side, the same thing can be said. We saw Zach LaVine come back last game, so it's Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. Nikola Vucevic listed as questionable, but he is indeed more so probable, so I'd expect him to be able to go here. So obviously, with these three being back, it's going to make it so their usage isn't quite as high. That being DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic, but I still do think in a game that's expected to stay close with the fantasy point per minute upside that we just see from these guys, certainly would not argue against you playing two of those three big studs. I don't think that all three can get you there in tournaments. That's a little bit scary. They can. They've done it before. All three have gotten there before in close games, so we've seen it. But for me, once again, kind of similar to a Charlotte Hornets situation, where we have all of these guys ruled in, and it's kind of a matter of who, which two get there. And it's kind of a little bit unpredictable as to who does it. I think it's just kind of more of a hot hand thing. But for me, play two of them. Don't get too much exposure on that side. And then we're going to go from there. For the time being, my projections, like if you're a Patreon member of mine and you're looking at my projections, all these Raptors are really grading out some really good plays. That's because I have Fred VanVleet and Scotty Barnes projected as out right now. Obviously, if those two are projected as in and I update my projections, these Toronto plays aren't going to grade out as quite a good a place. But once again, I still really, really like whoever starts for Toronto. It's just the fact of the matter. They run their guys out there for so many minutes. They all produce at really high rates. So for that reason, Really going to like those guys. Next game on the slate, we got Memphis taking on the San Antonio Spurs. Fresh says, lock of the night. I didn't make a video earlier, man, so I don't have a lock of the night. With these large slates, I've been starting to not put out a video as often because I just don't think they're as effective. With the live stream is way better because by then we have all the news. I can actually give you guys some relevant data and updates as to who I'd be looking to. If I make a video earlier in the day and something happens like it did yesterday with the whole entire New Orleans Pelicans squad was ruled out, the stuff that I said in that morning video really doesn't matter. From an entertainment aspect, you might still like watching it. So I try to put one of those out as much as possible because I know it's like a nice kind of jump start to your day. And the lock of the night segment I know everyone loves, and you don't get that when I just do the live stream. But just got to be honest, like I'm trying to give you guys the most valuable content possible. And if I give you a video early in the day and then an entire team gets ruled out, we get a bunch of injury news. That news just, doesn't it doesn't matter what I said earlier in the day is essentially what happens. So I'm still putting out those videos as much as possible, but that's why I didn't make one this morning. It's a really large slate. We had a bunch of injury news. I'm not going to touch on all that stuff and just kind of waste my breath when we can kind of go over it here on the live stream. But I will be putting out the morning video, my lock of the night, as much as possible. That's just the reason why I didn't this morning. Booker and Giannis for me, yeah, I don't hate it. I think Giannis could be a really good, like I said, if you're just tuning into the stream, Arizona, being that the game's going to stay close, I think Giannis could see, maybe upper 30s versus low 30s where he sees sometimes, and that can go a really long way. Time on Life says, the videos are very effective for someone who can't watch the stream. Yeah, man, I do. That's what I'm saying. I get it. So I try to put them out as much as possible. But on bigger slates like this, I'm really trying to do the stream, and then the stream gets pre-recorded and uploaded to my YouTube channel as well, so people that are getting off work, you can still watch the stream from the beginning. It won't be live. But, watch as much and skip through or doing whatever you need to do, and it'll all be relevant data to the current update. So, Memphis taking on the San Antonio Spurs. As far as the total in this game comes in with a 228.5 over-under 4-point spread in favor of the Memphis Grizzlies. So, expected to stay close, expected to be up-tempo. We have some big news here in Desmond Bane. That's the biggest piece of news we're waiting on. He's listed as questionable. If he indeed continues to be ruled out, going to be a ton of usage towards Ja Morant and a Jaren Jackson Jr. once again. We've seen these guys really take a big bump up here in their usage and upside with this team dealing with his injuries. Still really like both of them, as is Jaren Jackson Jr. It's the same story every single time he takes the floor. Phenomenal fantasy point per minute producer. Really has a ton of upside. He just loves hacking people when he gets in foul trouble a ton. Last 3 games, 5 personal fouls, 4 personal fouls, 4 personal fouls. If the guy can just keep his hands to himself, not get in foul trouble, he's a phenomenal play. Just know that's what you're getting yourself into when you want to play a Jaren Jackson Jr. There's a high possibility he can get into some foul trouble. If he does, obviously he's not going to reach his full ceiling. Really going to like him and Ja Morant more if there's no Desmond Bane. If Desmond Bane's back, I'll really like all 3. If there is no Desmond Bane, and Brandon Clark's listed as questionable as well, is a big piece of news. So Xavier Tillman could become a much better play. But also with there being no Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, John Conchar would become much better plays here as well. So DeAnthony Melton and John Conchar could be really good plays here, specifically DeAnthony Melton. If there's no Desmond Bane and Brandon Clark, DeAnthony Melton just becomes a smash play. And we just got confirmation that Jarrett Allen is in. So Kevin Love probably not going to be a thing for us tonight. Jarrett Allen is in. That's the latest update there. And but this game, really good fantasy point environment, going to be fast up pace. We're waiting on some injury news. It's an 8:30 p.m. game, whereas locks at 7 o'clock. So once again, if you can leave yourself some flexibility from these first games to be able to swap in some guys, maybe like a De'Aaron Fox that we talked about in that Sacramento Kings game, maybe like a Desmond Bane if he plays, a Zaire Williams at 3.9. If Brandon Clark's out, John Conchar, Killian Tilly, Xavier Tillman, Jarrett Culver, all going to get bigger bumps up in minutes and become, pretty interesting plays. So could definitely get creative with some late swap if indeed these guys are ruled out. Obviously, we don't know if they're going to be, though, and if they're ruled in, you're kind of stuck with them. So I don't hate putting like a Brandon Clark or something in your lineup and then based upon injury news adjusting accordingly. But overall, we really need this news to be able to elaborate. The one thing that we do know in this game is Derek White and the San Antonio side is priced very friendly on DraftKings. Keldon Johnson's 5K, Derek White's 5.9. They're both grading out as really good plays for me here. Jakob Poeltl is only 6.2. Like, these price tags are criminally low on DraftKings specifically, so really going to like Jakob Poeltl at 6.2. Really going to like Derek White at 5.9. Really going to like DeJounte Murray at 9.8. And DraftKings is just not pricing these guys up enough, especially Jakob Poeltl and Derek White. Keldon Johnson at 5K as well. This game is going to be one that I think you're going to want to have a lot of exposure to if you're playing over there on DraftKings tonight. Price tags are too low. The tempo's there. Really going to like these San Antonio Spurs guys on DraftKings. And we know that there is indeed no Bates Diop as well in this one, which should give a few more minutes in the rotation to some of these other guys as well. Not that he plays a ton of minutes, but 15 to 20 minutes a game. Doug McDermott and Lonnie Walker at 3.4 and 3.6, worth going to in tournaments as well. But yeah, overall, really liking the San Antonio Spurs side. Doug McDermott does grade out as a great play for me. Just pulling it up now, so I will like him. Keldon Johnson, Derek White, we just talked about. Jakob Poeltl is going to be a fantastic play. I think Devin Vassell at 4.1 is respectable. So Lonnie Walker at 3.6. You can be blending in a bunch of the San Antonio Spurs guys in your tournament lineups tonight, and I really like those guys that are playing a bunch of minutes, like I talked about. Jakob Poeltl and Derek White. I mean, they're just too cheap. The Memphis side, we are waiting on that injury news. We really do need it to be able to confirm the plays we're going to, but we know we like John Morant regardless a lot, and we know we like Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot regardless. It's just a matter of they become even better plays if there is indeed no Desmond Bane in this one. So we just need that news. Arizona says, for parlay, what do you think John Morant 30-plus points and Memphis to win? Well, Memphis is favored by 4. John Morant, I like 30-plus points a lot more if there's no Desmond Bane. But he's been in attack mode. He's scored 30-plus points the last 3 times out, and I think even if Desmond Bane comes back, his usage is high enough with there being no Dylan Brooks that, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. If you want to do that, I don't hate it at all. David says, Gary Trent. Yeah, I think Gary Trent's a good play. He becomes a much better play if there is indeed no Scotty Barnes or Fred VanVleet, if either of those guys are ruled out. I mean, especially if Fred VanVleet's ruled out, then we saw Gary Trent take over the point guard position, so he gets a big bump up. Regardless, at 5K, he's still priced very cheap and has a lot of upside for that price tag. He's expected to play in the mid to upper 30s, so I still like him regardless. But if there's no Fred VanVleet or Scotty Barnes, or if both those guys, if both those guys are ruled out, he just becomes, one of the best plays on the slate. Absolute smash. So, yes, I do like Gary Trent Jr., and I like him even more if one or both of those guys are ruled out, and Scotty Barnes and Fred VanVleet. All right, Phoenix taking on Utah. We got 2 more games. I got to speed things up here. We got 15 more minutes before I'm going to have to hop off here, and I want to cover FanDuel as well. Phoenix taking on Utah. We have no Rudy Gobert, no Donovan Mitchell, so that's going to be a big bump up to the Utah guys. The only thing is, DraftKings did a little bit better job of pricing than FanDuel, and by a little, I mean a lot. These Utah guys, when we get to FanDuel, are really easy to be getting in. There's still good plays over here on DraftKings, just not nearly as good as they are on FanDuel because, once again, their price tags are pretty appropriate. However, with that being said, still decent plays across the board. Still going to get a big bump up. My favorite play by far on the Utah side at his price tag on DraftKings specifically is going to be Hassan Whiteside. Hassan Whiteside priced at a 6.6 price tag, taking on a Phoenix squad tonight. This game overall, decent pace game. It's a 223.5 over under, and only a 1.5 point spread in favor of Phoenix is the big thing. That really stands out to me because the fact that it's expected to stay close, the fact that there's no Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, 2 guys that are really big parts of this rotation. Loading up on some of these guys, some of these pieces does make sense. Hassan Whiteside by far being my favorite option on DraftKings at that 6.6 price tag. Really going to like him. And for running it back on the Phoenix side, there's no JaVale McGee now. There's no Jay Crowder, which makes the Phoenix side really interesting as well. Bismack Biyombo is only 5'5". Guy's been absolutely smashing as is, playing those backup minutes and playing more minutes than JaVale McGee. You take JaVale McGee out of the equation and you factor in that there's no Rudy Gobert here. The Utah defense, interior defense, becomes a lot more weak. There is a big difference between being guarded by Hassan Whiteside and Rudy Gobert. Hassan Whiteside is a joke on defense. Rudy Gobert is one of the best defenders in the league. So Bismack, going to be a really great play here. Really like him. Really like Hassan Whiteside. Really like both centers in this game. And also, Cameron Johnson at 4.3 is a really great play as well. There's no Jay Crowder. 4.3, really good fantasy point producer at 0.86 DK points per minute on the season. We saw him play 38 minutes last time out at a 4.3 price tag. That's a really great play for me on this site tonight on DraftKings. Really going to like Cameron Johnson. So this game's going to be one. We talked about that Memphis San Antonio game. I think this is another one. We're just going to be loading up on this one because there's a lot of really good plays here. So Phoenix, Utah, certainly making a lot of sense. I think we did a pretty good job overall of covering that right there. Bismack Biyombo, Hassan Whiteside, really great plays. And then the high usage guys on the Phoenix side, obviously, with this game expected to stay close. Devin Booker at 9.7, Chris Paul at 9K. They're the ones that all the usage flows through on this team. We saw, okay, James Harden is questionable now with a hamstring injury. That just came through. Oh, fantastic. The top play on the slate that we were going to be loading up on is now questionable. And Day'Ron Sharpe is ruled out with an illness. Fun stuff. So James Harden's questionable now. Considering he hasn't been listed on the injury report all day until now, that makes me think that James Harden probably isn't going to play. So that's a big piece of news. So I'm just going to loop back to that game real quick because we need to talk about this before I get off this live. Denver, Brooklyn, James Harden, if he's ruled out, I mean, that's a huge piece of news. I talked about how James Harden was pretty much the only relevant guy on the Brooklyn Nets side of thing. If you take him out of the equation, the Brooklyn Nets are going to provide you with a ton of value. We're going to be taking a much harder look to a Cam Thomas, a Patty Mills, Kessler Edwards, and pretty much anyone that ends up in the starting lineup, and all those young guys that should get a lot of run on the Brooklyn Nets are going to become really interesting. Patty Mills, DeAndre Bembry, Kessler Edwards, Sharp just got ruled out, so LaMarcus Aldridge maybe gets a few more run. Blake Griffin, Cam Thomas, James Johnson. Bruce Brown probably gets a much bigger bump up as well, so that's fun. That is fun. So, yeah, this is probably going to become another situation, kind of like last night we were loading up on that New Orleans Pelicans value. I'm guessing that James Harden gets ruled out now, and the entire Brooklyn Nets team becomes all the top value plays on the slate, and that's going to allow us to get up to all the studs on the slate, like a Nikola Jokic, like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, like a Luka Doncic, like a Trae Young, like a John Morant, like a DeJounte Murray, like a Devin Booker. All right, fun stuff, guys. So yeah, James Harden's list is questionable. I'm guessing he's out. It's a big piece of news, so until we get confirmation on that, but all those guys that are going to start for Brooklyn are going to become better plays. I'm guessing we're just going to be loading up on all of them. Bruce Brown, Kessler Edwards, DeAndre Bembry, Patty Mills, James Johnson, Cam Thomas. I mean, they're all just going to become the best value plays on the slate, and we're just going to be, it's going to be star scrubs again. So, yeah, for the time being, my strategy would be to put James Harden in your lineups, I guess, and then late swap away from him to those Brooklyn Nets values. I'm just going to take a very strong lean that James Harden's out now. He hasn't had an injury diagnosis all day. Now, all of a sudden, he's listed as questionable. He's probably going to be out. So, this is going to become a stars in scrub slate. Asani says James Harden out. No, he's listed as questionable. He's not officially out, but he's most likely going to be out. Yeah. So, yeah. It's a big piece of news. So, pretty much we're just going to be playing all the Brooklyn Nets value and loading up on studs. So, talking about studs, Devin Booker, Chris Paul are going to be good studs in this one. Rounding things off in this last game, Luka Doncic at 11-1. Fantastic play, taking on a Portland squad that's been terrible defensively all season long. And now it's probably going to be really easy to get to him. It's a 217 over-under, 110 implied total for the Dallas Mavericks. That 110 total is going to be a lot of Luka Doncic, so really going to like him. And running it back on the other side, on the Portland side, there is no Robert Covington. There is no Nazir Little, which is obviously a big piece of news. CJ Ellaby is going to be, a bigger, much better play. Norman Powell going to be a much better play. Yusuf Nurkic going to be a much better play. CJ McCollum, Anthony Simmons going to be a much better play. So loading up on the Portland Trailblazers starters that are going to get a lot more usage now. Anthony Simmons, CJ McCollum, Ben McLemore at 3-6, possibly getting the start as well, going to be a much better play. And Dennis Smith is listed as questionable, which would make Ben McLemore an even better play. The question is, I don't know how much of a... I think Ben McLemore could be just a diamond in the rough as far as all this value that's probably going to open up for Brooklyn now. I think Ben McLemore is still a decent play, but we're probably going to have a bunch of value again with James Harden expected to be out. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this slate. That's how I would suggest that you approach this slate. And we got to talk about FanDuel before I head out, guys. If you're enjoying this stream, we got 26 people in here right now. I know we were up to 30. Hit hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. And if you haven't checked out my premium content, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/KJK_DFS. You can sign up for the premium package, which I'll be updating my projections, core plays, player stats, team stats, play contact stats, all that fun stuff every single day. I'm going to put that link in the chat. You can also check it out, link below in the description. And a big thank you to all of my current Patreons. I'm going to put you guys up on the screen. Really do appreciate you. So thank you to all of my current Patreons. Appreciate all your support. And with all that being said, let's talk about some FanDuel. If you want to sign up for the premium content, check it out. Check out the sponsor of the program, Super Draft Pro as well. That's linked down below in the description. We're kind of running short on time here. FanDuel we're going to be talking about very, very quickly. But I think we already kind of have an idea of where we're going to be going to now. Like I talked about with Brooklyn, I'm expecting that James Harden's going to be out. So that's going to be Patty Mills at 5'2", Cam Thomas at 4'5", Bruce Brown at 4'4", all going to be much better plays. DeAndre Bembry is minimum salary at 3'5". He would become a much better play. Day'Ron Sharpe at 5'5" was ruled out. And this is a back-to-back. We saw LaMarcus Aldridge last night play about 20 minutes, I believe. So how many minutes he's actually going to be able to play on a back-to-back is a question. I think we see Blake Griffin get much more involved in the equation here, and James Johnson as well. So those are other pieces of value you could be going to. I have a feeling that's kind of where this slate's loading towards. We're just waiting on that James Harden news, and then probably we're just going to be loading up on all the studs. So my approach is going to be to play this as if James Harden's out. If he gets ruled in, I can just late swap onto him, leaving myself some flexibility for that news, though. That's like the biggest news on the slate. That is a big, big deal. But getting up to some other studs now with him probably going to be out, in my opinion. Like getting a Giannis in there at the 7 o'clock game makes a lot of sense to me at the point guard position. DeJounte Murray, Luka Doncic, John Morant, Chris Paul, Trae Young at 9.5 is priced much more friendly over here on FanDuel. So loading up on some of those guys. And yeah, I mean, we're waiting on that De'Aaron Fox news. So Tyrese Halliburton could certainly be interesting. Some guys over here on FanDuel that are really grading out as good plays as in respects to DraftKings, though. I mean, the Utah guys. The Utah guys are so cheap over here. We were already looking to go to them. So it's going to be like... I can already tell you where the slate's going. It's just going to be the same thing that happened last night. Last night we had New Orleans Pelicans and the Toronto Raptors value, right? Tonight it's going to be the Brooklyn value and the Utah value on FanDuel specifically, which I'm playing on FanDuel tonight personally. We're just going to load up on all the value and just load up on the studs because that's where the slate's going. Mike Conley at 5'8", Jordan Clarkson at 5'6". There's no Donovan Mitchell. Both those guys phenomenal plays that I'm certainly willing to get a lot of exposure to over here on FanDuel. Gary Trent at 5K. We talked about him on DraftKings as well. Really good play. Cameron Johnson at 5K with there being no Crowder and now no... JaVale McGee, going to be a really decent value play here at a 5K price tag in that fast up-tempo game. Once again, played 38 minutes last time out, 34 FanDuel points. Going to be a good play over here. And those Utah guys are just too cheap. Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, and the Orlando Magic guys as well. We talked about the Orlando Magic guys on DraftKings, but they're also very, very cheap over here on FanDuel. So loading up on some Orlando Magic guys, I don't hate. Nikola Vucevic just got ruled in. So that's the latest piece of news. But Jalen Suggs at 6'7", Cole Anthony at 5'3". His price tag is way too cheap over here on FanDuel. So he's really, really popping for me on FanDuel. I don't know why they dropped him all the way down to 5'3". I mean, on the season, the guy's putting up over a fantasy point per minute. That's just too cheap of a price tag. So loading up on some Cole Anthony on a site like FanDuel really makes some sense. AJT says, Whiteside or Biyombo on FanDuel? Well, I think they're both really, really good plays. If you're asking me the best upside at his price tag, I am going to be leaning towards going with a Hassan Whiteside. The price tag is just a big difference. You're only paying 5.5 for Hassan Whiteside, where you're paying 6.3 for Bismack Biyombo. Do I think that Bismack Biyombo can certainly get there at this price tag? Absolutely. But do I think that Hassan Whiteside can match him at a cheaper? Absolutely. And Nerlens Noel is ruled out. So I think that Mitchell Robinson probably has some more minutes solidified. Taj Gibson gets a few more minutes on this rotation tonight. But, yeah, I mean, Bismack and Hassan Whiteside are both really, really great plays, man. That's tough. I tend to think that the extra salary that Hassan Whiteside's going to be giving me is worth it, just going down to him. And he's produces at just as high, if not better rate as, Bismack. So for me, it's going to be Hassan Whiteside, just that price tag. There's a big difference there, but If you want to go Biombo, I don't hate it. They're both really great plays. And I don't think you can go wrong. But my answer is Hassan Whiteside. You just get that salary. That's going to give you a few more thousand, a few more $100 to get up to some other studs that you want to be paying up for on this slate tonight. So that's going to be my approach. And, yeah, I mean, Zach LaVine at 7.5 is really cheap over here on FanDuel. He's a guy that I loaded up on last time. I just don't know if I'm gonna end up on him, man, because I think I'm gonna be loading up on some Brooklyn value and loading up on the Utah value on FanDuel. I think that's the approach on FanDuel, is to play a lot of Brooklyn cheap guys and a lot of Utah cheap guys and pay up for like Giannis. Karis LeVert is a really good play at 7.8. We talked about him being a good play now. Running that point guard position for the Indiana Pacers against the Charlotte Hornets team that's really bad defensively. I think his upside is phenomenal. Luka Doncic taking on a Portland squad that's really bad defensively. Really going to like him at 11.4 if you can fit him in your lineups, which I think we can now. Ja Morant, DeJounte Murray, Chris Paul, Trae Young. Paying up for these point guards makes a lot of sense. De'Aaron Fox at 8.3, Tyrese Halliburton at 7.7 are both going to be really great plays if they're both in. Tyrese Halliburton becomes a really, really strong play if there's no De'Aaron Fox against an Atlanta Hawks team in a fast up-tempo game. So that's kind of the approach there. And, yeah, guys, I mean, we need this. The Utah Jazz guys are way too cheap over here on FanDuel. Jalen Brunson, there's no Tim Hardaway Jr. now, so he's going to get a slight bump up. DeAndre Hunter just got ruled in for the Atlanta side of things. And Bogdan Bogdanovic is in as well. TLC is in. So, speaking of cheap plays, DeAndre Hunter, really cheap in that fast up-tempo game. He's 5.8 over here on FanDuel. I think he's cheaper over there on DraftKings. But he's playing a lot of minutes. So, in that fast up-tempo game at 5.8, I do think DeAndre Hunter is a pretty great play. I think he's cheap. Yeah, 5.5 or so, around the same. But taking on a Sacramento squad, his price tag is very, very friendly across the industry. He's someone that I would certainly be willing to get some exposure to. And, yeah, guys. So, this slate, I think it's really going to come down to that James Harden news, considering he didn't have any sort of injury diagnosis all day, and then all of a sudden he's listed as questionable with a hamstring injury. I'm leaning towards James Harden being out. We already got confirmation there's no Day'Ron Sharpe. We know that there's no Kyrie Irving. There's no Kevin Durant. The Utah side, we know they're dealing with a lot of injuries. So, on that FanDuel slate, I would advise you leave yourself some flexibility for that 8 o'clock news, because if there's no James Harden, guess what? It becomes Bruce Brown, James Johnson, Cam Thomas, DeAndre Bembry, Kessler Edwards, punt time, and we just load up on all the studs. And we already have all the cheap Utah value, and I have a feeling that's where this slate's headed towards. So, yeah, guys. Joseph says, and this Harden news is why he doesn't do the lock of the night on big slates. Yeah, exactly, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, I want to. It stinks because I know a lot of people are really big fans of it. But, like, I could do my lock of the night, then news comes out, and my lock of the night becomes, not even relevant compared to being a good play earlier in the day. And then everyone's all mad because my lock of the night, didn't come through or something. So it's kind of a lose-lose. If I do it on a smaller slate, it's just much more realistic that the news isn't going to come out. There's not going to be enough news to where my lock of the night's just absolutely ruined. And I don't want to provide you guys with the whole point of this channel is to provide you with the most valuable content possible to help you win at daily fantasy sports. So, it's beneficial for me to put out more content. I get more views. I get more subscribers. It's a catch-22 because if I put out more content, I'm building my YouTube channel faster. But, I want to build my YouTube channel faster while doing it the right way. I don't want to just be putting out junk content. I want to be putting out stuff that's actually helpful. So for those of you that don't understand, like I'm explaining, that's why I do it this way. So on big slates like this, where we have a ton of news, I'm probably just going to lean towards going with these live streams, really helping you guys out. And I got a lot of other stuff going on too. I got to hop off this stream right now because I have to update my projections, my core plays for my premium content members. And then right as locks hits, I'm also responsible for hopping on a business Zoom call for the real estate work that I do. So I got a lot going on, but here to help you guys out. I'm going to update my projections, my core plays right now, guys. If you enjoyed this stream, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. You can sign up for that premium content if you want to hop into the Discord chat. You can ask me questions all the way up until lock, after lock, all that fun stuff. So if you're interested in that, check it out. But I got to hop off. If you enjoyed this stream, hit that like button, guys. My last piece of advice for you on this slate would be Leave yourself flexibility. Leave yourself flexibility for that James Harden news. I'm assuming that he is indeed out because he wasn't listed on the injury report all day. All of a sudden, he has a hamstring injury. So I think James Harden's going to be out. I think this is going to become a slate where you really want to be having some flexibility. So you can be loading up on guys like Cam Thomas, like Bruce Brown, like Patty Mills, like all those cheap guard plays, and then be paying up for all the studs in the slate. So that's going to be my approach. Worst case, if you leave yourself some flexibility, if you put James Harden in your lineup, you could leave him in. He's going to become one of the best plays on the slate. But unfortunately, we're probably not going to have that news before lock. So you got to kind of be a little bit risky with it. You might be able to get that Brooklyn value lower owned than you should, though. So for me, that's my advice. That's probably what I'm going to end up doing. I know that's what I'm going to end up doing. So that's my approach here. Certain Moody, I'm late, but hit that like button. My guy KJK worked super hard and gives us great info. I appreciate that, Dwayne Moody. I got to hop off here. Jigga says, your lock of the night always goes off. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I don't have a lock of the night tonight because I wasn't able to make my video earlier because of this huge slate and all this injury news. So I don't have an official lock of the night. And we're still waiting on more news with this Brooklyn value now. So I don't have a lock of the night, but let's just put it this way. My chances are, with the injury news and how I'm expecting this to break, my lock of the night is going to be whoever the starting guards are in the Brooklyn Nets game. Because that's going to be the top values on the slate. That's going to be able to get you all the studs on the slate. AJT says, LeVert or LaMelo on FanDuel. I would go with Karis LeVert there. There's no Malcolm Brogdon. There's no Domantas Sabonis. There's no Miles Turner. So he gets a really big bump up. All right, guys, I got to bounce out of here. If you want to get my core plays, my projections, all that fun stuff, and you want to get access to that Discord chat, sign up for this premium content. I got to go update that, help out my premium content members. If you enjoyed the stream, hit that like button before you head out. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit that subscribe button as well. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. Thank you for all the support. Wish you guys all the best of luck tonight. And I will say it once again. Best piece of advice for you on the slate is leave yourself flexibility to be able to adjust to that James Harden news because that is the biggest news on the slate. If we don't get that news until right before the game and other people aren't prepared for it and you can play those low-owned Brooklyn Nets value plays and you can load up on all the studs, you're going to be in a very good position to win a lot of money on this slate tonight. That's my piece of advice. That is my last words of wisdom. I'm out of here. Wish you guys all the best of luck tonight, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.